Single engine off 30.
Those calls indicating that we can make our minimal orbital cutoff targets in the event of a dual engine failure. Rolled a heads up in the plain view of this camera on the liquid oxygen feed line. Everything looking good for Discovery. 6 minutes, 11 seconds into the flight.
Discovery Houston, single engine Istris 104.
Roger, single engine Istris 104.
That call indicating that we can make our transoceanic abort targets in the event of a dual engine failure. However, all 3 engines on Discovery continue to function normally, along with the auxiliary power units and the fuel cells. 6 minutes, 40 seconds into the flight. 2 minutes of powered flight remaining for Discovery.
Discovery Houston, press to MECO. We show a nominal shutdown plan. Your go for the plus X and go for the pitch maneuver.
Copy, press to MECO, go for the plus X, go for the pitch maneuver, and nominal MECO.
Those calls acknowledged by Steve Lindsay, Discovery's commander, indicating with Discovery now 516 miles downrange that we can make our main engine cutoff targets, all 3 engines in good shape, and that Lindsay will be given the green light to pitch up Discovery to allow umbilical well photography of the external tank after it is discarded. 7.5 minutes into the flight, Discovery's main engines soon will be throttled down to limit the stress on the shuttle and its 7 crew members to that of 3 times the effect of gravity. Discovery currently traveling at a speed of more than 4 miles a second. Discovery traveling 14,000 miles an hour, 675 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. About 40 seconds of powered flight remain. Eight minutes, 15 seconds into the flight. Everything looking good on Discovery, standing by for main engine cutoff. That will be followed a few seconds later by the separation of the external fuel tank. The booster officer reports that we have main engine cutoff, standing by for external tank separation. External tank separation confirmed. Commander Steve Lindsay now maneuvering Discovery to the correct orientation so that video and digital stills of the external tank can be captured by cameras embedded in the shuttle's umbilical well. A smooth ride to orbit for the shuttle Discovery, embarking on what is expected to be a 13-day mission. In a couple of minutes, astronauts Mike Fossum and Stephanie Wilson will begin several minutes of video documentation.
Discovery Houston, we showed a nominal MECO. OMS 1 is not required.
Okay, copy and concur, yes.
Fossum and Stephanie Wilson will begin several minutes of video documentation and photography of the external tank that has been now discarded. Discovery will be about 1,450 feet away from the tank at that time. Fossum will record video using a PD-100 camcorder. Wilson will use a digital camera with a 400-millimeter lens. All of that will be downlinked about 3.5 hours into the flight for analysis by imagery experts, along with the imagery from Discovery's umbilical well cameras. As it turned out, patience was a virtue. The third time was the charm. Discovery now in its preliminary orbit. This is Mission Control Houston, with Discovery now safely in its preliminary orbit about 11.5 minutes following its liftoff from the Kennedy Space Center here in Mission Control in the Shuttle Flight Control Room. From right to left, Flight Director Norm Knight, who was the Weather Flight Director, assessing all of the weather parameters that led to the green light for Discovery's launch. To his left, second from the right, is the Ascent Flight Director Steve Stitch, who today presided over his first launch of a space shuttle. Capsule communicator Steve Frick, second from the left, was the voice you heard talking to Discovery's commander Steve Lindsay during its climb to orbit. And on the far left, astronaut Tony Antonelli, who worked all of the weather issues with the shuttle training aircraft pilot astronaut Mike Bloomfield down at the Kennedy Space Center today. And aboard the International Space Station, Expedition 13 flight engineer and NASA science officer Jeff Williams watched Discovery's launch as the International Space Station flew just south of Tasmania over the southern Pacific Ocean. Williams and Expedition 13 commander Pavel Vinogradov, now in their 97th day in space since their launch aboard the Soyuz TMA capsule from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan back on March 30th. They will receive visitors on Thursday as Discovery is scheduled to dock to the International Space Station just before 10 a.m. Central Time. And this view is from onboard cameras on the International Space Station. The International Space Station is traveling over the South Pacific, moving from southwest to northeast, soon to cross the equator in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator. The race by Discovery to catch up to the International Space Station has begun.
Discovery Houston, we are happy with the APU cooling. Your go for APU hide shutdown when you get there. On page 3-4, tail-only control is not required, and we have no other deltas.
And we copy all that, Steve.
Spacecraft communicator Steve Frick has given Commander Steve Lindsay and pilot Mark Kelly the green light to shut down the 3 auxiliary power units. Everything looking good on Discovery. A smooth climb to orbit from the Kennedy Space Center, an on-time launch at 1:38 p.m. Central Time.
Houston, Discovery, APU hide shutdown's complete.
We copy. Thanks, Mark.
Here in the Shuttle Flight Control Room, the Mechanical Systems Officer reports a good shutdown of the 3 auxiliary power units that provided aerosurface steering for the orbiter during its climb to orbit, along with the main engines, which swiveled to permit the shuttle to roll to its heads-up position as it climbed uphill. This team of ascent and entry